Dr. Elizabeth Hoefer wants you to get your head on straight. In a world gone sideways, having balance and integrity in all areas of life leads to having confidence that breeds clarity. Clarity is essential to living an authentic life, and all the information shared on the Get Your Head On Straight podcast is designed to inspire you to live your life fulfilled. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Get Your Head On Straight with Dr. Elizabeth Hoefer. I'm excited about my guest today, Dr. Mindi Jentes. She actually began her chiropractic journey as an assistant in a chiropractic office. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jentes.
Thank you, Dr. Hoefer. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to do this interview a couple weeks ago, but life and COVID-19 got in the way. So now We're both up very early and we're excited to talk. And you're like one of my best referrals and you're another chiropractor. It's been fun.
It has been. It has been.
So we were introduced because both of us were members. I'm still a member of the California Chiropractic Association, and we would see each other at the local Orange County events. And we became friends because it's so important to have camaraderie within our field, and especially women in chiropractic. You know, it's growing, but it hasn't always been a thing. So when I met you, we had a lot in common. We were both funny opera singers and we were both sold out for Jesus. And we both forged our chiropractic journey in kind of an untraditional way. So it was really neat when you started to understand the importance of what Blair Chiropractic is. And then we started co-treating patients together. That's been one of the biggest joys of my career, is having other doctors of chiropractic value the care and want to treat with me instead of being in competition with.
Correct.
So can you tell the listeners a little bit about what you were personally going through before you had a desire and an experience with the Blair Upper Cervical work?
Sure. Well, I don't remember. Well, I remember very vividly, but I don't know if you recall, but I called you begging you to get me in on your schedule. And you had, at that time, you had quite the waiting list. And I was like, Dr. Hoefer, I don't care if I have to pay $1,000 to see you. I don't care if it's 2:00 in the morning. If you don't get me in, I'm going to the hospital and I'm having surgery. And you're like, oh my goodness. And so at that time I was having truly, and for me to even say that, because I do not go to the doctor for anything because I don't ever need to. But for me to say that, that's pretty intense. I was having truly severe off the chart pain with, my neck, and it was radiating into my shoulder and down into my arm, all the way into my hands. Numbness and tingling. I was losing motor strength. I couldn't hardly use my hand or my arm. And as a chiropractor, that's not a good place to be. But I noticed that with it, I was also having incredible headaches that were just, oh my goodness, really, really bad. And I've always been a headache sufferer my whole life, had a traumatic birth. And so as a result, I'd always had headaches, and I had been to other chiropractors and had found some great relief, especially with the technique that I use, which is a different technique than you, but it's something that's very complementary. And when the headaches weren't going away and the arm pain and neck pain were just continuing to increase, especially probably about 2 years into practice, or maybe more, and I forget, 3 years into practice, I was at that point really desperate. I was afraid because the last thing I wanted was to have to close my practice and go on disability, because now I can't do anything. And so I called you in tears, crying, begging you, and you got me in late Friday afternoon one day. And I will never forget it. Like, everything changed from that point on. And I mean, literally upside down, flipped my health around and my life around.
You know what? Like, it never gets old hearing this kind of testimony, but knowing how amazing you are as a doctor and the way that you practice. She uses an Activator, which is a tool, a handheld tool that she's got advanced certification training in, and she actually trains other doctors and students. So to have that level of professionalism, like, come to you and say, I need your help, it's humbling. And it's also kind of like scary, because you're like, dude, this is where the rubber meets the road. Like, what if what I've been saying to her isn't really real? And of course, I believe what I do, and I believe in the Blair technique. And I actually value Activator so very much. I actually use an Activator as like a support system. And I really value the testing and the research that they've done. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but I was excited for the opportunity to literally get my hands on your neck. And I remember doing the exam and giving you the correction, and then like the things that unfolded going forward, even into a couple of months later, watching you go through the healing process was nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
And it even impressed me, and I see miracles every day. And it was just so neat to be able to be a part of that. Like, I look at the way that I've been given this tool as a gift from God. And I just loved being on that journey and literally feeling like I was the hands and feet of Jesus to you, because he gave me the skill set to be able to meet you in your time of need. And it has transformed your life. And it's been so incredible to watch you grow as a doctor and as a professional, and to take steps in faith that are like, oh, they make my knees weak. So
mine too.
Yeah. So, going back to kind of what you were feeling, you had that excruciating neck pain, but there was something else that has been incredibly interesting. And that was you had a heart murmur.
Yes.
So talk to the listeners about what you were doing, and specifically tell me about that day that you called me.
Oh, yeah. So I was born with a heart condition called mitral valve prolapse. And basically that's a valve of the mitral valve, a portion of the mitral valve in the heart that doesn't close all the way. And so sometimes it would stay open and it would leak. So it's like a leaking heart valve. And it's not dangerous when you're born with it, apparently. But as you get older and you start to go through hormone changes, especially heading into midlife, it can become problematic, more in the fact that it is discomforting, but it's not necessarily life-threatening. And so I was having, in addition to all those headaches, I was also having pretty intense just heart palpitations, racing heart rate. My blood pressure was elevated, and I was also getting some chest pains. And I knew that this is kind of a phase that my heart will go through on occasion throughout my life. And so I really wasn't terribly concerned about it, but it was becoming more discomforting. And with everything else going on, it was alarming, because, that's the last thing I wanted, was now I'm having a heart problem on top of everything else. And I'm already only a few years into practice, and oh my gosh, this can't be happening. There was a lot of those things. And I remember going in to see you, and the first visit you checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was super high. And I'm like, that's not right. There's something wrong with your cuff. It can't be that high. And you're like, no, I think it's fine. I'm like, I don't know. But okay, whatever. And so, but I remember that first visit, I got adjusted and I went home, and I had told another friend of mine about my condition too, and how it was really scary. And she really felt like it was a spiritual battle. And there's times in my life where I'm like, my spirit says, yes, this is a spiritual battle. And there's times where my spirit says, no, this is not spiritual. This is physical or whatever. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I remember thinking, no, it's not spiritual. And so that made me nervous, because now I'm pretty certain now we're dealing with this as a physical problem.
Right.
And now I'm more scared, but so I remember having had that conversation with her. Then I saw you, and then I went home, and I think it was the next day. It was not, I don't even think it was 2 days later. I'm pretty sure it was the next day. I was sitting in the living room, and I'm having a lot of heart palpitations at this point. And it's later in the evening, and we're just sitting there watching TV. Nothing crazy is going on. I'm not stressed out. And all of a sudden, I literally felt my heart literally hit the front of my chest wall and the back of my chest wall, like a flip-flop. And that was enough to make me go, oh my gosh, I think I need to call 911. But there was no pain. I wasn't having any symptoms other than that one moment. And I was like, well, they're just going to tell me there's nothing wrong, that it's stress and blah, 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 and now there goes $1,000 or $2,000 hospital bill for them to tell me there's nothing wrong. And so my daughter, who happens to be one of your interns, she was, at the time she was home, and I called across the house for her to bring her blood pressure cuff and everything just to check my heart. And she was like, why, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. There's something really wrong. And so she checks my blood pressure and she listens to my heart and she's like, Mom, there's nothing wrong. Your blood pressure is fine. I was like, check it again. There's something wrong. I go, Kayla, seriously, listen hard. There is something wrong. So she listens and Kayla is a really good student. So I wasn't concerned about her level of skill doing this. And she says to me, Mom, seriously, there is nothing wrong. I said, give me the sphygmomanometer. And I listened to it myself. I listened to my heart and I was like, Kayla, listen again. And I hand it back to her and she's like, oh my gosh, why can't you just trust me, Mom? There's nothing wrong. And I said, well, that's the problem. There's nothing wrong. And she's like, what? And then it hits her too. Oh my gosh, that irregular heartbeat that you have had your whole life, that sound of the mitral valve not closing fully is gone. It's not there. That's normal. Your blood pressure is normal. What the heck? And so I remember thinking, what just happened? And then, of course, all the science starts going through my head as to like, okay, the vagus nerve and the vagal tone and the effect that it has on the heart and the rhythm and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like going all through the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, I have a feeling that adjustment totally, literally healed the mitral valve prolapse.
Right.
And so I remember, it was probably a few days later that I came back to see you for a follow-up visit. And sure enough, you're like, Mindi, I don't hear it. There's nothing there. I think this is a miracle. I think it's cured and it's gone. And to this day, I do believe that's the case because I've never had that issue again. And so I haven't had the official EKG done to prove that that's the case, but
right. But we're going to get it done. And the thing is, she actually had an original, like she's had this her entire life since she was born. So there's a massive amount of, medical documentation to show that she actually had this issue. Sometimes when people get a diagnosis, then the doctors will reverse it and say, oh, well, we just misdiagnosed you. So
right.
That's not the actual case. She had a mitral valve prolapse and now she doesn't. And obviously I'm not sitting here saying you're cured, I cured
right.
you.
No.
But the truth is your body has an amazing ability to heal itself when given the right circumstance and the right opportunity. So I was pretty excited about that. And that circumstance and that event has actually transformed how you look at things.
Yeah.
And so after that, the referrals from Dr. Jentes started flooding in. And it's been a joy. In fact, now, sadly, she doesn't live in the same state as me. She went on a journey herself and took a leap of faith and trusted that God was calling her all the way across the country to North Carolina. And it's really neat because now she's actually involved with an upper cervical practice that allows her to do her Activator. And she's learning a different upper cervical technique, but Atlas driven nonetheless. And to watch her grow into that and really be resolute in the fact that knowing that having upper cervical and CCJ, cranial cervical junction integrity, is the foundation of health is so awesome.
Yeah.
So besides the physical impact that the Blair Upper Cervical Correction made in your life, Dr. Jentes, give me a little bit more understanding of outside of that. What kind of improvements have you noticed and experienced in your life?
I think, honestly, of all of the, there's been a lot of things. I mean, it's almost countless. I used to have just chronic low back pain, always aching in my low back. And that is when my Atlas is in, let's say that, when it's in, I have no low back pain. And that's a big, big help for me, especially being on my feet all day and, working with patients myself. I need my low back especially to be strong and not be in pain. And so that has made a big difference. I also think too, of course, the neck pain, the shoulder, the numbness and tingling, the motor, all of that came back so fast, like healed so quickly that I mean, it just was like within a matter of a few months, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gone. Like, it's just that I noticed everything changing, everything. Like, but the biggest impact that I think that it had, even outside of the physical side of, I mean, the pain that I was in and stuff, I mean, literally saved my career. Like, I really could not imagine being in practice right now, feeling the way I was. There's no way I could have continued. The biggest impact that it had on me really was on my brain function. And that is when we understand the relationship of the atlas to the brain stem and the critical importance of the central nervous system and how that information flowing from the brain through the spinal cord into the body and back is impaired, like severely impaired, if the atlas especially is not where it needs to be. That impact is really profound. And until you have that cleared out, you don't realize what you don't know.
Exactly.
You don't realize what you're missing out on, right? It's like, you don't know what you got till it's gone. It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah. I always tell people always tell me, and I confirm it with them, like, you don't know how sick you were until you're not. And people are just so used to living with this level of dis-ease that they think that it's just normal to have an ache and pain, a headache, brain fog, that they need to have caffeine 6 times a day. And then when they get cleared out, and they're literally, their heads are on straight, they're like, I have never felt more vibrant. I've never felt more clear-minded. I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders and everything's going right.
Yeah.
So obviously that leads to kind of like the next question. How does being in alignment support your work?
Yeah. So for me, some of my focus, well, a lot of my focus, in addition to the chiropractic adjustment, is helping patients with their nutrition. And it's not just eat this, don't eat that, whatever. I mean, I'm using a program that some of you may be familiar with called functional nutrition, functional medicine. And that requires a lot more skill than changing your diet.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the patients that I work with are actually very, very sick. And a lot of them are under care with me personally, but they're also under care with other chiropractors around the country. And they need more intensive care with regard to nutrition. And a lot of these patients have severe chronic diseases that in some cases are actually life-threatening. And so before I had the Atlas correction, I found that I felt frustrated in my ability to work with these kinds of cases because they're very hard cases and it required so much mental capacity on my end. And it required so much, and it still does require so much additional training on a regular basis and a lot of research, a lot of studies that I literally was utterly exhausted at the thought of seeing a patient that I needed to work with in this level, because I didn't have it in me. And that was so frustrating to me. And so as that began to clear out and I started to see the change in my own brain health, I started noticing that I was able to be much more present with my patients and felt much more energy and confidence even in the recommendations and the care that I was providing them. And I started seeing better results, of course, because I was able to be a better doctor for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So from that perspective, that made a big difference. But the interesting thing is God has a way of just throwing it all out there for me. Like it's never a simple journey. It's never easy. It's always going to be like, here's an entire tornado for you to handle. In addition to taking care of everybody else.
Yeah.
You're going to also go through this. And so it was not long after I'd started working with you that I went through quite an emotional journey myself. And I can honestly say that had I not started under Atlas care, that journey would have been, I can't even fathom how awful that would have been.
Well, it was
hard enough.
It may not have happened at all because you were already at the capacity. You were tapped.
True.
Your bucket was full. And I feel like when you go through these healing processes and the levels and the layers that get shedded, if you will, it happens at the right time because you have the capacity to deal. Yeah. And so your emotional journey and the healing that has come from that like me, like my biggest healing was an emotional healing as far as I didn't have a lot of physical pain when I had my first Blair correction. I was suicidal, and getting a Blair correction literally saved my life, because in an instant I had hope and I didn't want to die anymore for the first time.
Right.
And so to be able to understand that the mental and the spiritual component of this has as much to do with your life as does the physical. That's why we talk about chiropractic. It's emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, financial. Like, it has an impact in every area of your life. That's why I started Well Connected Chiropractic, because I want you well connected to every aspect of your life. And so it's been a blessing again to just watch you grow and to see you go through that emotional journey. But then you know what you did with that was you took that and now you've transformed it into an offering for people. And I don't think we go through anything. God doesn't waste a thing. And we go through these turmoils and we go through these valleys, and we also go to the highest peaks of the mountain so that we have a testimony and an ability to help the person coming down the path who is about to go on a journey and needs a guide.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now with your training and with the experiences that you've had? What's the next step for you?
Yeah. So after God got me through all of these other life-changing things for myself, and like you said, I believe that that was part of the journey that has led me to where I'm at today and has prepared me for this phase in my life now. And so we decided that it was time to leave California. And so my husband and I and the children of ours that are still at home, we packed up and moved across country to North Carolina. I'm now working with a chiropractor here in North Carolina at Atlas Chiropractic of Raleigh, who is an Atlas chiropractor. And I'm also working with him with Atlas, and we support all of the adjustments with Activator. And so it has taken me from being in a place of being a business owner to now be an interning doctor, where I was interning students, to now being an associate doctor and working alongside someone who has even more years of experience than I did, and learning more and more and more about how upper cervical techniques can really benefit and complement with other techniques that are there, with, especially with regards to Activator. But in addition to that, it's given me the opportunity to start a private practice that I work with patients doing functional nutrition, and also a lot of more emotional healing opportunities. So God has really opened doors here for me to take what I learned working with you there in California and now combine that into one practice, and also be able to help women who are similar in age to ourselves and even older, going through lots of trials in their lives, but also a lot of their physical ailments that they may have, and help them find healing on the other side. I've started doing right now, especially, it's been perfect with the Zoom calls, and COVID-19 has offered us a great opportunity for this. But so all of my nutritional stuff is done via conference calls, and we do video conferencing, and I meet with my patients that way, and we discuss what's going on in their nutrition and how I can help them and lay out an appropriate plan for them. And then also too, I'm working on currently creating a online wellness, how would I describe it? I want to call it like a retreat, but it's like a personal retreat.
Yeah.
So because we can't actually retreat right now. And so it's an online retreat, if you will, that it's a journey for patients to walk through to help them go from pain to peace. And part of the things that are incorporated are obviously the need for chiropractic care, and the need for spiritual health, and the need for emotional health and physical health and financial health, all those things, so that on the other end that they can visualize and create their ideal life and actually find it and live it.
That sounds really attractive, and I want to sign up. So how can I do that? Where can I find you?
Absolutely. Well, the easiest way is to go to my website, is www.briowellness.com. That's BRIO wellness.com. You can find all of that information there, all the different service offerings that I have. And like I said, most all of that is done via teleconference. So it's simple to be able to do it from the comfort of your own home. And yet you get the face-to-face time as well with myself. And yeah, the process is much easier today.
Wow, that's great. And nothing like a little pandemic to jumpstart an entire new business model, right?
I know, right? That's one of the things that, at first I heard all this happening and I was like, oh no. And then I went, oh yes, that's terrible. But now I'm like, now I have time. I have time. I can put it together.
It's a thing, and again, God doesn't waste a thing. And even in this crazy pandemic where the whole world has gotten shut down, I know myself, I've taken advantage of the slower pace and being more intentional with what I'm doing. Hence the fact that I finally have been able to get around to doing some more podcast interviews.
Yeah, that's
and,
great.
It's such a blessing to have a friend like you who has always been a champion for my career and for the work that I have to offer. And we all have a purpose. We all have a calling. We all have a gift. And each of us together, when we join forces, the synergy in that is exponential. Yeah. So the heart that you had to collaborate with me has been nothing short of a blessing to all of the people that we've served together in Southern California proper. Absolutely. But now you've taken this experience and now you're transplanting across the country. And now lots more people are going to be able to have the benefit of all of the training and the expertise that you have to offer. And it's a blessing. Now I know I've got somebody in Raleigh I can refer to because I didn't have anyone before.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and like I said, I still refer people to you as well. And if I meet people and I know people in the area that are looking for a chiropractor, I'm like, you got to go see her. I don't care if it's 45 minutes of a drive. Do it.
Hey, right now there's no traffic. So it takes no time. The 405
no time at all.
It's great. So Dr. Jentes, it's been a joy to have you on the show today. And I'm just so excited that we got to, explain a little bit more to the listeners about what it looks like to co-treat, what it looks like to have your head on straight, even as another chiropractor, the power in acknowledging that you probably don't have all the answers and reaching out for help, even if it's something different than what you've done. And the healing journey that you've been on is incredible. So thank you for blessing me with your time today and for allowing our audience to really understand your heart. And I look forward to having people find you at briowellness.com and 100% sign up for the Pain to Peace retreat. I know that I'm going to do that. And I'm looking forward to the journey that I'm going to go on and really, even more so, get to a place where my physical, my mental, my spiritual are in alignment. And I'm really, truly living the best life I can. Yeah. So thanks again, Dr. Jentes, for coming on the podcast. And we look forward to talking again.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Get Your Head On Straight with Dr. Elizabeth Hoefer. Visit wellconnectedchiro.com for more details from the show blog post and to learn what Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic can do for you. To learn more about Dr. Hoefer and her practice, you can find her at Well Connected Chiropractic in Mission Viejo, California by visiting wellconnectedchiro.com for more information.